Hey y'all, Jamie here, back with another episode of Milk, Honey, and Mayhem. To the over 150 of you who have subscribed, thank you so much. And for the Cash Apps, you know who you are. Thank you. It really means the world. It's appreciated, and it helps me dig a little bit deeper into the history of our fascinating town, which I'm thrilled that you guys are enjoying. I've already had a few people reach out with some tales that they'd like to hear, and I absolutely love that. Matter of fact, I've created a new email address just for you guys to be able to get in contact with me. It's going to be milkhoneyandmayhem@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word. I'm going to link that down in the description. Y'all hit me up with what you want to learn a little something about. Today we're heading up to Brick Church in the northeast part of the county. And there's a huge trigger warning with today's video, y'all. While we aren't discussing anything that has to do with the harming of any animals, the second half of our video will take us into the processing plant. There's not a lot of the red stuff, but there is enough that if you're sensitive to that, but you want the history, just cut the video off after I say we're going across Blackburn Holler. If you can stick around though, you'll witness some of the prettiest beef you've ever laid eyes on. Before we get into what it is today, we have to go back to what it used to be. So let's get into it. Thomas Gordon was a Scotsman who had immigrated to Virginia in the early years and become friends with Andrew Jackson while serving under him during the War of 1812. While Thomas Gordon did live the last of his years here and is buried just down the street a ways, this story is really about his son, Robert. Before the Chickasaw Nation had begun selling land to the white settlers, many of those men had already settled on the spot of land they wanted. Robert Gordon and his wife Mary Kennedy were out searching for a spot to stake their claim when they came across a little spot near a creek that was so filled with cane that they had to chop it down just to be able to get their wagons through. As they were clearing it away, they noticed the abundant wildlife and fertile soil. Robert said, "This is the spot. This land is rich." They claimed hundreds of acres along the creek bank, and that's also how Richland Creek got its name, for the rich land surrounding it. Matter of fact, the land was so fertile that Robert Gordon and Mary Kennedy grew 11 acres of corn that first year and had their third son. The following year, a daughter came along, and they were needing a place to school these children and give them a proper Christian upbringing. One of the other settlers nearby had already built a Baptist church, but the Gordons were Presbyterian, so Robert deeded over a tract of his land for a small church and cemetery. Some of the fellas started work on a small brick building that they originally called Richland Church, but most people referred to it as Brick Church, being made of brick and all, and when other denominations began popping up over the hillside, they officially changed the name to Brick Church. It wasn't just religion that they wanted their kids to learn. These settlers were sophisticated and thought they needed a little bit of the reading, writing, and arithmetic too. Ed McMillan, another Scotsman who had settled in the area, just so happened to be an ordained Presbyterian minister. He helped build that original brick church with his own two hands. So he took up the preaching and taught the young men to read the classics in Latin and Greek. By 1870, that small brick church had grown far too small for the growing congregation, so they tore it down and replaced it with the current wooden one behind me. This church also served as a school until 1877 when Brick Church Academy was built out on Highway 11. That school burned to the ground in 1926, but they were so determined to educate their kids that two of the teachers taught the students out of their own homes until 1929. That's when 12 men bought a plot of land and the community funded the building of a new school, which operated until 1964. These kids were educated, sophisticated, and way more progressive than you think. This very cemetery that holds some of the founding members of the Brick Church community also holds the remains of over 200 people of color. In the early 19th century, the thought process was they worked together, raised their kids together, worshiped together, and they were buried together. Despite what the powers that be want us to believe, we have always been in this together. Some of the homes from those early days are still standing. This spot of land was owned by Thomas Lane until he sold it to Robert Laird in 1830. This is one of the old springs in the area. Let's go look at how folks around here used to get their water. Built over a small spring, the water runs underneath. These steps provided access to the fresh water that was mostly mud and critter-free. Now, my pops is an avid collector of things, and he remembers seeing bottles marked with Brick Church spring water, but I've not been able to find any definitive evidence of that. If you've ever seen one, let me know down below in the comments. The paths that were used by the soldiers during the state's war ran all through this area. During the Civil War, the farmhouse was taken by Confederate forces and used as a hospital for the sick and wounded soldiers nearby. You just know that there are a few haints roaming those old rooms. The home was passed down through the generations until 2002. The current owners have turned part of the old farmhouse into a Civil War museum, and they often host living history tours. Those are amazing. I'll keep a watch out for the next one and bring you along. While this community continues to celebrate the past, there's plenty of new to be excited about. Right across Blackburn Holler Road here is Brick Church Meats and More. A few years back, Brad Young, a farmer and cattleman, saw the need for a clean, dependable USDA certified processing plant. So he got together with one of his buddies, Billy Bloomhall, the owner of Low Key Ranch, and began designing the place they would want their meat processed. Teamwork makes the dream work, and Brick Church Meats and More was born. A family business, Brad brought along his wife and daughter, and in February of 2024, they opened their doors to the public. Today, they're opening them to us. This is Paisley, and today she's going to be taking us behind the scenes at Brick Church Meats and More to see how your beef goes from mooing on the farm to a mouth-watering burger in your hand. Come on, let's go. All right. Once the different regions are separated, they go from the 5 different sections, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. Tell me where they are.
So this is the front region. This is where you get your chuck roast.
Okay.
And you also get your brisket. So this is the brisket bone right here. It comes off right here. And then this is your midsection right here. This is where you get your ribeyes. This right here, this part in here, is where you get your skirt steak and your flank steak, and that's what you make your fajita meat out of.
Taco Tuesdays. I love that.
And then this fat hanging right there, that's the leaf fat. That's what we make tallow out of.
Oh, fantastic.
And then up more, you've got your loin, like your back area. That's where
the prime meats are.
Right. That's where your fillets and your New Yorks are. And you also get your T-bones and your porterhouses from there. Your porterhouses are your fillets and your New Yorks put together on a bone.
Okay.
Up there is your rump section. That's where you get your bottom round and your eye round roast. Most people make jerky out of those.
Right.
And then your top round roast, you can either do a roast out of that or you could do cube steak out of that. And that's where we put it in the tenderizer.
Yeah. Once the different regions are separated, they move over to the cutting area. Let's have Paisley show us some of those different cuts.
This is your fillet. This is what it looks like naturally when it comes out of a cow. They'll cut it up like this, just depending on how big you want them. This is your sirloin tip. These are your arm roasts, but this is bison, so we call them arm roast, but out of a cow you call them shoulder roast. And then this is your chuck eye steak, but Miss Lisa, she rolls them up, and then once we freeze them, they're cut into like little bitty steaks. This is a tri-tip. Those come out of the sirloin part too, the sirloin tip and the tri-tip. And then these are your Denvers, I think. Yeah, these are your Denvers. They come out of the chuck as well, and so does this. And then this will be your tomahawk steaks.
That's a big boy right there.
Yeah, and they'll cut them down the line like this, basically, and they'll be a big huge. This will be a ribeye. So normally this is where you would get your ribeyes. They've just made them into tomahawks by leaving the rib bone on them. But this is a cow ribeye right here, and it's packed into these black bags and put a label on it with a price. And this is for up front. This is a chuck steak. These are boneless, and then these are fillets. And there's 2 in those. And then that is a bison rump roast, and that comes out of the rump.
And I can personally attest to the fact that a filet mignon from Brick Church seared in a cast iron skillet is a life-changing experience. Let's go over the best ways to cook some of these cuts of beef to really bring out the best flavor. The chuck and the round are where the muscles are constantly in motion, so these are more lean and tough areas. Your chuck roast, Boston butts, shoulder steaks, that sort of thing are best cooked low and slow, either in a pot roast or a stew. Now, we all enjoy a good rib from time to time, and the best ones are marbled with fat and explode with flavor when grilled or roasted. I'm never going to turn down those burnt ends off of a perfectly braised brisket. And remember, Paisley showed us earlier where that strip steak comes from? Slice one of those into strips, toss it in a searing hot skillet with some veggies and spices, and you will get one of the best fajitas north of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, these top shelf cuts, your filet, your T-bone, your porterhouse, sirloin, and New York strip, they need minimal seasoning, but their juices really get going when you go at it fast and hot on a grill or seared in a pan. Now, they process more than just bison and cows here, too. They have pigs, goats, and sheep as well. These produce the same cuts of meat, only smaller. And if you want your meat dry aged, they can do that for you, too. Now, after all that expert cutting is done, the meat moves over to be vacuum sealed before it's either marked and placed in the gift shop for sale or put in the freezer for 24 hours before being picked up by the customer. Speaking of the gift shop, let's go check out the and more part of Brick Church. Because who doesn't love a goo-goo? The offerings here are amazing. There are coolers full of fresh meats, frozen meats, dairy products from Flowers Creamery. They have a variety of Watkins products, sauces, seasonings, and soup mixes. You'll even find house-made lard and tallow. There's fresh food and bones for your four-legged family members, and don't forget the toys. There are plenty of offerings for the littlest cowboy and cowgirls in your lives. Like any good Southern store, you can get your hands on some Lodge cast iron, a case knife, or even your very own cowhides. We're all busy these days. Brick Church Meats and More even offers take and bake options. For those nights when you're just too busy but you don't want to feed the kids cereal, you can just grab one of these bad boys, pop them in the oven, help with the homework, and feed the kids something nutritious and delicious. Huge shout out to Billy, Brad, Brooklyn, Paisley, and everyone else at Brick Church Meats for allowing us a behind the scenes look at your amazing business. If y'all want to visit Brick Church and you're in Pulaski, just head on out 31A and it's right there off Buford Station Road. If you want to come in from out of town, hit I-65 and it's just there off exit 22. And if you're dying for some Tennessee grown beef, but it's just too far to drive, hit them up, man. They ship to the lower 48. I'm going to link their website in the description below. And those lovely photos that are on that website were taken by the incredibly talented Olivia out there. So if y'all don't want your animals processed, but you do want some cute photos of them, she's your girl. I'm going to put her link in the description below. I sure hope y'all have enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching. If anybody wants to buy me a coffee, I'm going to link my Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo in that description down there below as well. This has been fun, you guys. Until next time, y'all be good.